Okay, a lot of people getting in the room. Just a few more minutes and then it will start. So Punit, thank you very much for being here with us today. We are really glad to have you here as our instructor for today's class. Can you talk a little bit about yourself and about what you are going to address during our class here today, please?
For sure. So thanks for having me first and foremost. Thanks Marcio and team for having me here. And let's check if everything is working fine. I'm going to share my screen and let's have a look if that's going to work because
Sure.
okay.
And you guys, we would appreciate if you could send the feedback, just write if sounds good, it looks good, or something like that. Then
Exactly.
we will know that you guys can hear us.
Right.
Okay, Saniv. Hello, Saniv. Hope you're doing great.
So first and foremost, do you see my screen?
No, we don't. Yes, it's loading right now. Yes, we can see your presentation. We can see you and we can hear you. Okay, great.
That's great. So everyone here, thanks for joining. And first and foremost, just type in the chat window where you are from, the country or the city, so that we know because there's a variety of audience. Everyone has joined from across the globe. And yes, this presentation is about managing privacy projects in large global companies. So if you are in a large global company, this is for you. But before I start, I think thank you everyone for joining. I see there are people from New Jersey, there are people from India, there are people from Belgium, there's people from Brazil, and there are people from other parts of United States. Yes, Austin, Texas. So everyone is here. I will not repeat everybody because there's so many people. Otherwise, I will spend 1 hour talking about how many people are here. So there are a lot of people, and I thank you for joining us. And I thank Marcio and team who make this presentation possible, who do these lives on a weekly basis. And people say there's no free lunch, but with Marcio and his team, there is a free lunch, there is a free privacy training every Monday. So thank you, Marcio and team, for doing this for us.
Thank you,
And
Punit, for
then,
being with us. And I'm pretty much sure that today is going to be one of our best classes. Just before we start, just let me say something very fast, very quickly. If anyone have any question, just feel free to send your questions through the chat. You can use the Q&A section if you will. And once we have the questions, I'm going to just deliver the questions to Punit. Does it sound a plan, Punit?
absolutely. And guys, the presentation is for you, not for us. The presentation I made is by myself. But if you ask questions, Marcio and I would be very happy to answer your questions. We want that all of you, insofar possible within the time limit, we satisfy your needs or we help you with direction. Of course, it's not possible everything in 1 hour, but we want to deliver you as much value as possible. I mean, Marcio and me, between us, have more than, I don't know how many, more than 50 years of experience combined. But what we want to do is compress that into 1 hour and push it to you as much as possible. So I already see a question. So we will take those questions. Yes, there's a question from Sanjeev that what is the organization structure for privacy compliance team? We can talk about it for 1 hour, but I will touch upon it. Don't worry. So I will explain you what are the different models that are possible. So please feel free. Please keep on asking questions. We'll keep an eye and do the best to answer them. And let me start with a quick introduction as Marcio said. So thank you everyone, as I already said it. And what I'm going to do is a little bit about me. You can know about me later on, but I make privacy compliance simple and manageable. That is, I use simple, pragmatic, and language that is free of legal jargon. You'll see it during the next 50 or 55 minutes. I'm an author of 3 books. One of them happens to be an all-time best book on GDPR, the Be Ready for GDPR. Coincidentally, I launched it 3 years ago. That was today. And I'm also a host of a podcast, and I'm offering privacy courses, online coaching and training, just like my friend Marcio. So we are in similar business. And yes, why I talk about large companies, setting privacy in large companies, because I did it in 30 plus countries twice and in 5 countries one time. So I've done it in multiple countries 3 times, right from setting up the privacy program to delivering it and getting it closure. Of course, May 25 was coming, so I could close one, but that's how it works. And I'm certified in privacy. And if you want to stay in touch with me, punit@punitbhatia.com, especially for you, my personal email. And you can also follow me on social media. Keep typing in the chat because it allows us to be certain that things are working and nothing is blocked. So the more engagement, the better it is. So let's get started. I'm going to be talking about 3 things. What are the challenges in large companies? What are the solutions? And the question on organization structure would get tackled in the solutions part. And then how do you make it sustainable? There also we talk about organization and setup. I just see the comments. Okay, so let's get started. The challenges. So if you are in a large company, it's natural there are a lot of people. And when there are a lot of people, what happens? You have a lot of opinions. And again, I'm talking about, let's imagine you get into a company and you're tasked to manage privacy or set up privacy compliance or get the company compliance. But whatever you do, these things will apply. So there are a lot of people, a lot of opinions. And with opinions happens politics because everybody wants his or her opinion to be taken in. There are reasons for it because there are regions, regions have departments, and departments have objectives. So when one person's objectives do not match the other person's objective, there's a clash, and that's where politics happens. And companies have strategy. They want to have X billion by X year or X date. They also have values, and then they also have plans. So when you join in into a company, you'll face all these challenges. To start with, these are generic challenges. Of course, you'll have challenges around privacy. There will be opinions about privacy. There will be people, there will be lawyers, and if you're lucky, there will also be some privacy officers. So like in one company I worked for, there were 50 plus data protection officers. And imagine being in a group office and having to steer them because everyone thinks they are different. Everyone thinks they have a unique law in their country, even though we were in 30 plus countries. And in another instance, I did not have the luxury of so many privacy officers, but then we had lawyers and business heads. And then what happens? Again, they have objectives, and for them, privacy is an overhead. And another time, it was we can do it later. So you always have different kinds of challenges which link to one of these 9 blocks. And it depends on what kind of structure is there. So what you need to do is you need to take action. And how do you start? So you take action in 2 steps, very broadly in terms of solutions. I call it a pre-program approach. That is, even before you say we will do this or we will do that, you need to do this 3 steps, the 3 A's. Let me check if in the comments people are typing. Nobody is typing. It seems like everyone has gone for a sleep. But guys, please keep typing. Please keep writing. Yes. Is it at the right speed? Just say yes. If you want me to slow down, I will slow down. Okay. Getting back to the pre-program approach. The first thing is you need to be aware about how are the different blocks that I mentioned in the challenges playing. What's the structure? Is it federated? Is it central? Is it distributed? So what is the power structure of different regional entities, different countries? And sometimes even within a country, you'll have wholesale departments, retail department, or business clients, individual clients, private clients. So things like that. So you need to be aware of all the complexity. And alongside it, you need to be also aware of who are the people who can help you. And as you are aware of, you identify the key power centers and start aligning with them. Start aligning with them in line with the strategy of the company. If the company strategy is go central, you talk about privacy going central. If The strategy is distributed. That is, each country would do their own stuff. They only have to meet their business targets. Then you talk about it will be a distributed structure. That is, all the countries would have their own privacy project or program. And you would steer it, you would monitor it, and then take action. But action you take when you have aligned with key people and you have identified what I call a sponsor. So this sounds like project management, program management. That's how privacy is managed. If you want to manage privacy as a law, as a compliance, yes, it's a law. Yes, it has to be complied with. And yes, there are risks. But you have to manage the risk dimension, compliance dimension, legal dimension. But first and foremost, you have to manage the project management or management dimension. So it's more about managing privacy. So you take action and find out one person or two persons or set of people who would assist you in saying, yes, this is how we do privacy. This is how we do privacy, meaning everything is getting done centrally. Centrally meaning in a head office, all the things are going to be done. Other option is every country would do their on their own. And there's never a good solution. If you do centrally, people say you don't give us flexibility. If you do distributed, they say you don't give us guidance. And if you give guidance, they say no, it's not enough. So there's never enough for people. That you need to remember. So you need to be very clear and aligned with your team. And as part of alignment, you need to tell them what are the risks, what options you see. So you need to put in perspective that there's an option around centralized. The risks are, the benefits are. Again, the distributed model is this: the risks are, the benefits are, and kind of develop a business case, not a financial business case, but business case, the pros, cons, and the risks, the financial risk as well. Take it, align it, and then when you have aligned it, you would usually have something called a mandate to go. Mandate to do privacy set up in a way. Normally, you have two choices organizationally. How will you do it? One, you'll set up a department like privacy office, TPO office, or project office. Do it there, or with some privacy professionals, you will include program or project managers who would do it with you. Both choices are okay. And you also have the choice of having privacy offices in each country. So I've worked in both approaches, both work fine. If your head office is strong, a central approach works. If the company is more federated, the decision making is more in countries, then I normally prefer a hybrid approach, because I would never say let them do what they want to do, because then you don't know where is the risk, and you as a privacy officer, as a DPO, as a global privacy manager cannot manage or cannot be in control of the risk. So talking about organization, something in head office and something in regional offices. That's an approach. Another one is everything centrally, but guide it to local teams. And be aware, in any approach, you cannot do it alone. Even if it's a central approach, you need to do it with people in regions, in departments, in businesses. So that alignment and awareness is key. And as you approach each and every region, this 3A formula would apply. Make them aware, align with them, and then determine actions. But as soon as you have done that, then we get into something called a fitness formula. Again, don't get scared. It's just a 7-step formula. It's an acronym that I use to articulate what it is. So this is when you have the mandate, when you have the resources, and when you have the budget, or at least something to start with. And then you start step by step. Let me check if in chat somebody is saying something. Yes, we are here. Glad there are so many comments. Yes, we are here. That's really nice to see. So keep typing in, keep posting in. And if there's any question or doubt, please say that over there. So first step is find, if I, this slide we talked about GDPR, but if privacy laws apply, or what are the gaps or requirements. So this is a cycle you will go through every time. I will first run it through as if there is nothing. So first and foremost is privacy, are privacy laws applicable? That is what you're going to find. So you find that as a privacy manager along with the lawyer, and another other requirements, because if you're a global company, it will not be GDPR, it'll be many laws. So you need to take consent, a consensus of which are the laws that are applying and what are the requirements. Once you have that, the next step would be to identify actions required. Now, if you are a global company, actions would be, do you need a policy or not? And would that policy be binding corporate rules or not? Yes, that's a new term, binding corporate rules. So essentially, it links to the business part of it. If your business has a lot of interactions with suppliers, then you need a policy. But if there's a lot of transfer of data within the company across regions, like when I worked for one company, they had operations all over the world, and each entity, each country was sharing data with the other one. I mean, not each other, but centrally, and sometimes between them for efficiency and effectiveness reasons. So, what you then need to look at is a mechanism in which the entities within the company can exchange, can share data in a light way. Light way does not mean without safeguards, but without the administration overhead. So that is what is called binding corporate rules. So if you have a privacy policy in-house and you go to, at least in the GDPR, go to your head office in EU, and there you go to the data protection authorities and say we want to validate this as binding corporate rules. It's a long process, sometimes 2 years, sometimes more, but that doesn't say you submitted it, you don't do anything, you start implementing it. So, and after all the EU member states have validated it, so your data protection authority where you submit would take care of it. They will give you feedback questions, and in about anywhere between 12 to 24, sometimes a little bit more months, it gets approved. So when you have binding corporate rules, the intra company or intra entity transactions or transfers become easier. You don't need all the overheads of making detailed contracts and so on. So if you look at the high level perspective, when you're starting up, find if it applies and then start taking actions like policy, because large companies, they work with corporate policies and so on. So identify that action and take it. And then how will the department be structured? So we talked about it being central, distributed, hybrid. So that's what you need to discuss. You need to discuss with your sponsor, and if you can, get your sponsor to be assigned as the executive who is responsible for privacy. Yes, you as a global privacy officer, manager, DPO are assigned the responsibility, but who is the business responsible? Because the DPO helps the business responsible fulfill the data protection responsibility. So if you can get that formalized, your actions and everything gets easier. So first a policy, then the organization structure. And believe me, you will not be able to do it alone. You will need other people. Like I mentioned, in one case, we had about 50 plus or 60 DPOs, and then they had their own team of 1 or 2 people. So I'm talking about more than 100 privacy professionals in a company. And in another case, we were 5 to 6 of us in a central privacy office. So both approaches are possible and both have their pros and cons. And the companies I'm talking about are multi-billion-dollar companies and operations in more than 30 countries. In fact, one had operations in 60 countries. So you need to assign or create a policy, assign these actions. And then when you do that, you would have some key staff, you would have some key people in your team, and tell them about actions. We are going to create a policy, we are going to do. And as you create a policy, you need to also create a monitoring framework. That is, this is the policy, but how will the end state look like? And in the end state, how will we match that the privacy and policy, sorry, privacy policy and the end state are compliant or aligned with each other? So you're going to define measures. I call it controls. Some people call it KPIs. Some people call it control framework. Whatever you call it, let's call it a readiness criteria or measures based on which you will ascertain all the requirements in the policy are implemented. Now, this policy approach is very crucial. Why is it crucial? Because it also ensures, a policy approach ensures that each of the countries who are operating, like when I was operating in 60 countries and as a global privacy manager, the challenge is how do you tell them what is the law? And nobody wants to read the law. And the other thing is law is complex. And then the question becomes which law? If I'm sitting in Philippines, do I read the Philippines law or the GDPR or the CCPA? Because company has operations everywhere. That's where a policy comes handy. You simplify and put those requirements in business language anywhere between 10 to 30 or 40 pages. So it's not a law of 200 pages. It's a company policy document saying what is privacy, how do we respect it, what do we do, and get it aligned. And when you have written it, you align it or you ask the key staff to write it and get it validated. Does it make sense? Give me a yes in the chat box. I see a little bit again some silence. And if it's not making sense, then tell me what you want to know and we will make sense out of that. So thanks, Sanjeev. Thanks, Venkat. Thanks, Maria. I will not say everybody's name, but thank you everyone for confirming. So tell your key staff about what are the actions. Your actions in stage one would be create a policy and create a monitoring framework. Then nominate an action owner. Yes, that's where the fun starts. It's good to have actions, but the project management methodology is you say policy to be created by this person, then to be validated by. Now, privacy is normally everybody's business and nobody's business. When you say who will do it, then nobody wants to do it. But when you say this is to be done, oh no, I want to have stake, I want to do this, you should consult me. So you need to very clearly define a Raki. Who is going to do it? That is responsible. Who is accountable? That will be you or your sponsor. Who is going to be consulted? In fact, the best approach is consulted before writing the policy or after writing the policy. Because if you do it before, you will never write a policy. So do it after you've written it, give them a privacy policy and let them review it. And then informed. So consulted and inform entire company. And once you have done that, then start to execute action. That is start to write, finalize the policy and get them accountable. And then you train your key staff on what is the policy, what's the objective, and then, as I said, you put in controls. Now, once you have done the first iteration is creation of policies and key control. That usually lasts anywhere between 2 weeks to 6 months, based on how agile your company is, how good your stakeholder management is, and how, should I say nicely, strong your people defending against it are. That's how it works. So if there are a lot of people challenging, a lot of people, so essentially you have to get it through. And as you have gotten it through, you move into the next stage. I hope my highlighter is working. Type in yes or no, maybe if it highlighter is working.
No, it's not working, but
Not working. Okay.
no.
So I'm at stage F. So you iteratively go to the find stage. So find stage again, what now you do now is you look at the requirement or controls that you put in the policy and against each control say, is it already implemented or not? That is, now you start evaluating if the policy is in practice or not. So this kind of an assessment or gap analysis can go on into some hundreds to 200 points because you check at finer details like, do you publish privacy statement? Yes. Does the privacy statement explain which data is collected? Okay, yes. Is it published for employees? Yes. Is it published for suppliers? Is it published for customers? So you go granular. So what looks like a control privacy statement or transparency gets translated into 10 to 12, sometimes 15 separate requirements. And you do that check. So usually you'll say, yes, there's a privacy statement because company would have one or the other type of privacy statement. You'll have some yeses, but things like, does it mention all the rights? Probably not. Does all the websites have cookie statements? Probably not. And is the cookie announced to the user in the right way? So, and then all those things. So you will identify all those gaps, and then from those gaps, you will translate actions. That is identify stage. So don't get concerned if you get hundreds of gaps or tens of gaps. It's a good thing. The more things you have at granular level, the more you can control and get your company to a compliance stage. So then you identify each action, and now the actions are not two or three or five, like have a policy, which requirements are applicable and which controls. The actions are far more granular. You'll typically have anywhere between 50 to 150 or 200 actions, and it's difficult to manage it. So what you do is you bundle them as project streams or projects, or uh, privacy streams or privacy tracks, whatever the terminology you want to use. So essentially, privacy becomes a program that is led by, driven by the global privacy manager, supported by a project or program manager, having multiple small projects like project privacy statement for customers, privacy statement for suppliers, privacy statement for employees. And why do you need to have it at that level? Because the next step is tell your key staff about actions and nominate. So if it's a privacy statement for HR, you would normally assign it to either the head of HR or an HR manager, or a, you will create a working group of HR people if there are multiple regions behind it. Similarly, if it is privacy statement for customers, you would assign it for a marketing or a say customer department. But then it is their responsibility to make sure the two things happen in synergy. All the key staff who need to know about or participate in those actions are taken care by the person who nominates, who is nominated. So there's one person who's going to be, let's call him the business sponsor of that project. So this business sponsor of privacy statement for HR would be head of HR, maybe corporate head of HR, because if there are so many HR heads, the sponsor for privacy statement for customers would be head of marketing or head of global customers relationships, somebody like that. But that doesn't mean they will do it all by themselves. You need to support them, and you need to include all others, and that's where a Raki kind of mechanism, this person is responsible, who will be consulted and who will be informed. You are, or your sponsor is always accountable. So accountability doesn't move. When I did this in multiple countries, we ended up with about, I think, 35 or 30, no, 12, 36 owners, 36 nominated owners across tracks, because we had 12 tracks. For each track, we had a business responsible for customer, for employee, and for supplier data. And effectively, we had 36 places wherein we had action owners, while in terms of actual number of people, we had around, I think, 17 or 18, because some people were assigned twice or thrice. So when you do that, then they can go about execution of actions, and your role becomes taking a step back and making sure those actions are getting monitored. Like, if continuing with our example of privacy statement, let's imagine we are talking about the privacy statement for customers. So you will monitor, where are we? Do we have all the information? Do we have the structure finalized? And finally, in the end, is it copy edited? Is it published on the web? So you'll go granular on each of these actions. And that's why I said each of these actions actually becomes a project of its own. So some more activities needed in the chat section. I see when I ask, you become active, but then I don't know, you get lost in what I say or whatever. But I love to see you active, and so does Marcio.
If there
Because
is any
we do
question,
this.
I'll let you know. There is one question
Yeah,
right
there's the
now.
question.
Yeah.
Is privacy statement for customers same as privacy notice on website? Very good question. Let me handle that straight up, because we are taking that as an example. So there are three things. There's a privacy policy, which is a company internal document to tell the employees how you manage privacy. Some of the more transparent companies share their privacy policy outside on a website so that even customers know how privacy is being tackled. That's called a privacy policy. Then you have a privacy statement or privacy notice. That is what you publish to a specific category of individuals whose data is getting processed. So for employees, for customers, for supplier personnel. And there you describe for that segment of clients or that segment of individuals what happens with their data. So it is not your company policy, it is what happens. And it typically answers some straightforward question. What data you collect, why you collect, what you do with it, who gets access to it, and if this individual has more questions or rights requests, where do they go? Very broadly, that's what it is. Now, some companies confuse it. If you go to some websites, they intermittently refer everything as privacy policy or privacy notice and or privacy statement. So there is in the market a fair bit of confusion around these terms. But what I mean by privacy policy is internal, privacy statement is a customer or individual facing document, and privacy notice is something else in my opinion, though a lot of companies ask say that is also privacy notice. That is, a privacy notice is what you need to do on on the spot. Let's imagine Twitter. Yeah, Twitter had a attack or a breach few weeks back. So if I was in Twitter and I was their global privacy manager, the privacy policy is there internally, privacy statement is there on the website. But now customers are visiting. Customers are visiting to understand if their data is breached, what is happening, and so on. So you will publish an intermittent privacy notice on the front page of your website saying, guys, we know there has been a breach. This is the privacy notice, and that's how we are describing you what happened. Or a better example would be, let's imagine there is a government, yeah, like we are in corona world, so that will be a good example. So for corona, you are going to collect more data than what is written in privacy statement or known to your employees or even customers who are visiting your premises if your office is still open or is open. So what you would do is you'll put on your website saying, due to pandemic circumstances, to protect our staff and protect you, we are going to ask you the following additional data. So same information as privacy statement, but which is an ad hoc and interim information. So we are going to ask you to give us your name so that we can inform you if somebody else on that day is detected with corona, and we are going to not use it, or we are going to use it legitimately. We will keep this data for 30 days or 15 days, because when 15 days nothing has happened, your data can go. So we are going to collect this data ad hoc interim. So privacy notice usually is that. But as I said, the terms are intermittently confused and intermittently referred as the other things. Was it useful, the answer? I think let's check with the person. If it was, say yes. Okay, there's a yes. And if anyone has a follow-up question, please say that. And then continuing with our flow. So I was saying, when the projects are created and everyone is nominated an action, let them execute those actions. That's the E stage. And once the actions are executed for each of the projects, make sure the right staff is trained on process. Remember, I said right staff. Not the whole company needs to know about everything, but everybody needs to know about something about privacy. So there's the generic part and there's the specific part. So you make sure everybody in the company gets the generic information, but the specifics go to right people. Like if you have a customer support department or a call center, that customer support department needs usually to understand your privacy statement, because you don't know who gets in and starts asking strange questions on privacy. So if they know it, it's always better. Now, once you have trained the staff, it's about surveying. And remember, we defined controls along with privacy. So you apply that control and recheck if everything is now compliant. And if it's compliant, that's good, but you don't stop. And you look at how do you improve it. If you don't do it, you can stop for a while, but in about 1 year, restart that survey, because things keep changing. and again start the same cycle on the new gaps and the new requirement. So this iterative process, you have to continually do it, and it's like the fitness what you do in the gym. So when you go on day one, it's difficult, but when you keep doing it, your body develops muscles and you grow in strength. That's the same thing with your company's privacy approach, privacy compliance. When you do it first time, it feels heavy, it is expensive, it takes time, it drains energy. But when you have done it 2 3 years consistently, you have evaluated controls, then the muscles start to build in, and as the muscles build in, it starts to show benefits. Does it make sense so far? Any questions here? Because this was a big slide and a big part of the presentation. If there are any questions, okay, so there's a yes from a couple of people. So yes means it was clear. So let's move on. But this is the core of it, because we were talking about the solution part. In the solution part, the stage one is you identify and align with people and create awareness, and then this is an iterative process. This iterative process would stay with you forever if you are a privacy compliance officer, privacy officer, global privacy manager, or a DPO. But then once your project mode is done, I call it project mode, meaning the situation wherein you are starting from scratch and there was, let's say, nothing in place or something in place. Or if you come in first time as a global privacy manager into a company, you will apply these principles. Have a look. Like when I joined as a global privacy manager in one of the clients, what happened is they believed they had everything in control. So I ran this test, the fitness test, and so I said, show me the privacy policy. We have this. And I said, it was 1 page. I said, wow, that's interesting. I've never seen such a small document. So I looked at it, and it was a set of security principles. And I said, guys, we need to review it. Yes, we know it. And I said, okay, when are you planning to do it? Oh, we don't have time yet. Okay. So I said, I will write it for you. So we wrote it. Similarly, then I asked requirements like, where is the data inventory? Yes, we have it. Okay. Who has validated it? Who has written it? Well, that's still being discussed. So you can understand they had everything, but when I ask a question, then comes the well, or we are doing it, and that gave me a list of actions. And we said, okay, who's the privacy sponsor? What do you mean? We have a privacy office. I said, yes, but you are the privacy office to help, advise, guide people. You're not the privacy office to do things for them. It's business responsibility. Business is accountable. You are responsible as a DPO, as a privacy manager, to advise them. So that's where the sustainability part comes in. So the quality of your project will determine how sustainable you make it. And then as you get into the sustainability part of it, I always say this to my clients. People say, we've done our project, we are compliant. And I say, you are never compliant, because what was compliant yesterday will not be compliant today or tomorrow, because your business always keeps changing. So if you're compliant before corona, now you're not compliant, because with corona you're collecting more data. And if you're collecting more data, your privacy notice needs to go updated. Maybe your privacy statement needs to change. Maybe your security things need to change because people are working from home. Maybe you have bought software to work from home or additional things, and maybe there are new vulnerabilities. So it's never the end, it's always the start. And in that start, we come back to the earlier question of the organization. So if you are in a run the business, or call it sustainability option, that is, you are in mode to sustain the privacy compliance, you have different models again. And the less number of touch points you have, the better it is. One is you can have a global privacy officer and all the businesses get into it, and within that global privacy office, you appoint people per region or per business line. Or another approach is you assign them per category of data, like for employee data, for customer data, for supplier data, that way, because that's more better. And then you need to also define what I call it as an operating model. Now, most consultants from Big Four will tell you it's a target operating model, and I used to in 2017 call it future operating model because that will be effective at least in Europe from May 2018 onwards. So we had this future operating model, FOM or TOM or whatever you call it, operating model. So in that model, you need to define how is the privacy office structured if there are many regions, or you are going to have one Europe wide, one America wide, and one for Asia Pacific and so on, or maybe three or four, and then everybody responding to centrally. So who is going to do what? And always know it's the business who has to do it. You are there to support them. So they are at the front end. They are talking to clients, and they are the ones who are responsible for managing privacy, whether it's a small business or a large business. You are there to assist them, advise them. Of course, you also have some tasks like managing, making sure controls are in place, controls are monitored, privacy statements are up to date, you initiate annual actions. But those are the things which you do on a sustainable basis, review and look at them. But from an organization standpoint, you need to align with your sponsor. What is the end objective? I give you an example. When I started with the company, it had more than 100 privacy statements for customers. Yes, because we were meaning that company was operating in more than 35 countries. They had privacy statement for one business line and they had another privacy statement for another business line. So easily they had 35 into 2, and then some products had their own privacy statement. So they had close to 100 privacy statements. And then I joined in and I said, of course, not alone with my sponsor, we are going to have one. And you can imagine what happens in a big company. When you make a statement like that, what happens is people go crazy. No, it's not possible. It's not going to work. Our laws are different, our business is different, our this is different. And also you are impacting the freedom and the what do you say, flexibility of the local offices, because then they need to comply. But we made it in the end one privacy statement for the entire company. So if you are going to make it sustainable, you're going to look at that. So I defined the TOM and I defined objectives like this. So define your objectives, define your target operating model, and then assign the key staff. And as you assign the key staff, you need to bring in some people from the past meaning those who were involved in the solution stage, those who were involved in the understanding the challenge and building the whole privacy setup, and then put them in there. And of course, you need different skills. Running a change project and running an operation are different skills, but both need privacy. So you set up a privacy office and you distribute the responsibilities. So that's on the sustainability part. That is, define a sustainable operating model, define the responsibilities behind it, define annual actions, and then list out the responsibilities of this privacy office. So like on an annual basis, they will check if privacy statement needs to be reviewed. On every 2 years basis, they will check if privacy policy needs to be renewed, because maybe there's a change in law. Like in Europe, they're talking about e-privacy legislation or regulation. If that comes along, then maybe you need slight twist, slight adaptation to your privacy policy. And if that's the case, maybe privacy statement as well. Your technology changes, maybe your website is changing, so you need to adapt. And also sometimes there's new guidance from authorities, or there's a new law. So there's always that evolution part. So you need to list all of them and define the frequency of those actions. Is it every month? Is it every year? Then there are need based or ad hoc actions, like if a data subject asks, like makes a request, right, for erasure, let's take it for fun. And if it's right for erasure, you don't wait, you have to answer in 30 days, and you don't determine when that comes along. So those things you need to plan on an ongoing basis. And the most important thing in making it sustainable is monitoring. Yes, you have your controls which run on an annual basis, but the monitoring, that is on a every 2 weeks or every 4 week basis, you check the key parameters across countries. So I call it a privacy dashboard or privacy operational dashboard or privacy compliance dashboard. Doesn't matter what you call it. Essentially, you put in 10 to 20 parameters, which can go on an A4 size page, and every 2 weeks you say, this is it. This is how you this is the status. But now the question is, who do you tell this? So when you are defining your organization, there's the department, but there's also something called governance. So there was a question earlier on, what's the organization structure? So organizationally, you'll have a department, and even in that department, there's a model wherein you split it: a privacy department for business and a privacy department external facing. That's another model. But whichever model you choose, you need to have governance. So governance meaning, who are the responsible people on business side? Like, you can have data owners, data stewards, or privacy owners and privacy stewards. How often do they meet? So you need to set up something called a data protection or privacy board. Again, you may need an ethics board, but you set it up at different levels. So the corporate privacy board, the regional privacy board, and the operational privacy board, at least those three. So regional meaning, it would take care of, let's say, a European wide decisions on privacy, because if something changes in Europe. The operational would lead to changes in the, let's say, privacy statement needs to be changed, then it is an operational matter. If your data subject access requests are too many, then you maybe need to automate things. That's an operational matter. So these things go to the operational board. But let's imagine you are getting too many requests based on your privacy statement, and you believe the privacy statements in all regions needs to be consolidated. Now that's a strategic matter that cannot be discussed regionally. That needs to be discussed at the corporate privacy board. So you define that governance and how it will work and how the functioning will happen. So target operating model is about people and the department and the office, but it's also about the governance side of it. And another dimension is making it work, that I explained you, the privacy compliance dashboard or structure. So with all the three things, people in place, governance setup, and the monitoring or compliance dashboard in place, all the three together make you as a global privacy manager or global DPO effective, because you have your department, you have your staff. Okay, if it's multiple departments and it's distributed, that's another thing. You can handle the complexity as long as you know it. You have your governance, that is when you meet, how you meet, and what you decide operationally, strategically, regionally, and tactically. And in the corporate board, corporate privacy board, you certainly need someone from executive board, not anyone less than that. And that is the chair of that private corporate privacy board. And same in the regional, you need the business owner for that region or his delegate, but not delegate and delegate. Sometimes people delegate 3 times and then it's not effective. One delegation is okay, 3 delegations is not okay. And then the third pillar being your operational metrics dashboard. So what do you measure? How many breaches were received? How many were notified to client, or how many were notified to supervisory authority? How many were fixed? So if you consistently see that in a region you are having more and more breaches every month, then it's an indication that there's something wrong, or there are too many data subject access requests, or there's a trend or a graph into that. Then you can pay attention. So measurement is very important. I know our job as privacy officers is to make sure compliance with law, but we cannot manage what we don't measure. If we don't measure, we don't manage. So you need to measure that and ask the countries, ask the regions, or maybe put in automated tools to give you that data about around 10 different things: the privacy statements, the data breaches, the data subject access request, the customer requests on privacy, customer complaints on privacy, things like this, and new projects on privacy. So you have to keep a tab on these things. So in short, what I'm saying is, if you need to make it sustainable, you need to put an effort, and you need to stay focused also on what is changing in the business. So that was the 3-step approach which I had planned. I think it's 50 or 52 minutes, which means we have good amount of time to have some more questions. First and foremost, was it valuable?
Definitely it was. And
Yes, Marcio, for you and me, let's hear in the chat also. Because
I
I
have
see
some
chat is,
questions and some comments on what you have said, but definitely, guys, feel free to ask as many questions as you want. But Punit, I would like to know your opinion. How is it important to define with the C-level of the organization what kind of approach the company will have on data privacy? Is it important or it doesn't matter? From your experience, do you feel that most of the big companies, the big organizations, they just want to comply with the law, or there are some other companies that may see privacy in a different way? How do you feel about the necessity or not to align with the C-level of the organization, the approach the organization should have on data privacy?
I think that's a very good question, Marcio. When I say awareness, alignment, and action, I exactly mean that with your executive board, with your C-suite, tell them what is privacy, what are the possibilities, because you as privacy professional know what are the possibilities, centralized, hybrid, detailed, what are the risks, and align with them. And sometimes you have to look beyond privacy, because if a company has value like transparency, then you can hook onto it and make it part of your customer trust initiative or a privacy culture initiative. So you don't have to look at it as a law, as a compliance issue. You can make it a culture change, you can make it a trust dimension, because there's a very vital statistic which I came across few days ago. It's a recent study, and it said if companies invest in privacy from the right perspective, that is with right intentions and right approach, what would happen is they would get a return of 2.7 times their privacy investment. So if somebody has invested 1 million, they would get 2.7 million back. So it may seem like a cost, because for us as a privacy professional, it's difficult to justify to the C level, but you have to take on these statistics like this and say, I'm asking you to invest this. These are your choices, but be aware, don't go by cost. These are the returns in sense. I don't remember the number, which said it led to increase in customer trust. It led to decrease in breaches. It led to even reduction in number of sales complaint, which I was surprised, because okay, people like us would have answered, but how could they justify, those who answered, that it leads to a removal of sales blockages or things like that? So essentially you have to take all that information, put it together, and give them all the option. Never assume that you are to go for a central or a distributed model. Always put to a C level all the options, and all options are generally three: you're completely central, completely distributed, and the hybrid. But the hybrid is a lot of variants of hybrid 1, 2, 3, 10 you can go, but have one or two variants of hybrid and take them along, make a risk analysis and share it. I think there's a question also out of privacy, people, process, and so that was my answer on the C-suite. People, process, and technology. What is the technology role of technology in? Wow, that's a good question. So there are three ways in which technology will play a part. So one, there are technological programs and they need to be privacy compliant. That's where technology people need to play a part. Second is privacy itself is a very fundamental business and a new stream. So there's initially you tend to do a lot of things manually, but over time your dashboards, your data subject access requests, things like that would get automated. So technology also has to play a role there. But then the third dimension is what we call technical and organizational measures. So whether it's business, whether it's HR, whether it's procurement, those technical and organizational measures and policies on security and technology in coordination with, in alignment with your privacy policy are to be defined by them. And if you can link your privacy policy with business values, business strategy, that's wonderful. And that then becomes a C-level conversation saying, if we do this privacy technologically, this is here our impact, and this is the impact on customer trust, this is what we distribute to customer. Like when I was in a company and we were talking about privacy policy, the policy of a company, we had a debate on should we share it with clients or not. So I just played one argument with my sponsor, who spoke to the CEO and said, our value is transparency. Yes. So if it's transparency, why don't we tell them how we manage their data? Is there's no confidentiality in it? It's just an extraction of law. And we could agree that if we argued from a privacy policy standpoint, we would keep arguing. But as soon as you link it to business value, it becomes good. What's your success rate and failure rates? Please share expert opinion on failures. What do you mean by success and failure rates in what? Venkat, if you can elaborate that, because success and failure rate of privacy projects, or what do you mean success and failure, or us as people? Projects. I think at the moment I haven't seen a statistic on privacy projects, but I have seen a statistic on the return on investment from privacy projects. So there's a good study. If you want, you can email me at punit@punitbhatia.com, and I can point you to that study. I think it's freely available, which gives a detailed, and I don't remember which company created it, otherwise I would have given it and you would have Google searched it, which gives detailed information on what are the benefits of privacy investments, what are the challenges that still remain, and so on. And it's, I think, 10 to 20 page report. So it's a really nice one. So there is a return on investment for sure. But again, if 70% people are saying the return on investment, then I can also extrapolate and say 30% failure rate, but I would not call it failure rate. That's I think privacy is not about success and failure. Privacy is about making choices and managing risk. The success and failure of a project is more an engineering correlation, which we have in technology or IT, wherein say project was successful, it was delivered or not, because privacy has so many dimensions. It will deliver on certain things. Like you'll always have a privacy statement in the end. Now the question is how good it was and were you fined because of it. Like I won't name the company, starts with a G. They were fined because of their privacy policy. So is it a failure of the project? Well, the project was supposed to deliver privacy policy or statement, not, but project was also meant not to get fined for 50 million. So it's a difficult question, but if you need the statistics on return on investment, I can help you. I hope it was useful, but we are in a new field, new dimension of privacy. So I'm sure within about 5 years or so, you'll also have the failure and success rates of privacy projects somehow.
Yeah, and sometimes the company fails. It doesn't mean that the DPO or the privacy project fail. Just because the company has decided not to follow the project or even the advice from the DPO. So it doesn't mean that you fail. Sometimes it's the company. I think that a data privacy project may fail if it doesn't identify a gap and it doesn't tell the company what the company should do in order to train people, change process, or even implement some technology, or even change a contract. I usually say that any solution for any data privacy gap will be people, process, technology, or sometimes contract. It's a legal matter at the end of the day. So very good.
I think very well said. And it also indicates to me an example which happened in my life. I went to a company, a client, they asked me to write a privacy policy and they said, it's too long. I said, so what should I do? Make it 3 pages. I said, not possible. They said, either you make it or we will delete some stuff. So if you have that approach, is it my failure as the privacy advisor or is it their failure? But it's a failure somewhere because that person has a mindset that I want a privacy policy of 3 or 5 pages, not of 10 pages. Because in these things, it's not the number of pages, it's the number of the value or the requirements.
Yeah. And as Punit said, at the end of the day, it starts with people. So if the people don't understand what you were trying to say, the concept, the importance of data privacy, and you might be doing your job, but it doesn't mean that you are going to be able to change the people's mind. Is it a fail? I don't know. I don't feel like it is.
No.
You are doing your job, you are doing your best, but sometimes people just don't understand. So it's not easy, but
No.
as Punit said, it starts with people. So that's why you need to engage, the C-level. These guys, they need to understand how important privacy is, how important the project is. Sometimes they even see as something strategic for the
Right.
company. Apple is just one example. We've been seeing more and more advertisement from Apple, trying to tell the market how privacy is important for them. I don't know if they follow the rule, but that's at least what they are trying to show the market. And yeah, I feel that at least they try to show that it goes beyond being compliant with the rule. It's
Yeah.
something that's it's strategic for them. So
Yeah. I
very good.
think talking about Apple and their privacy thing, their CEO Steve Jobs, at least I don't know it in person, I don't know him personally, but I had Anne Cavacchio, the Privacy by Design lady. She was with me in a podcast, the Fit for Privacy podcast, and she shared with me that Steve Jobs was a privacy fanatic to the extent he lived it in his life. So he had this tendency that in California state, you can have a car for 6 months without a number plate, at least at that time. So he would have a white Mercedes without a number plate for 5 months and 30 days, and next month, the 6th month, he would get a new car, new Mercedes, again white, so that nobody knows his car number plate and he can protect his privacy. Of course, he could afford it, having a new Mercedes every 6 months. But what I'm sharing is the sentiment of privacy was being demonstrated from the top, the sea level.
Very good. Excellent. Good example. Well, if you guys don't have any question, I would ask you, Punit, to talk a little bit about your podcast. Just to let you know, guys, there was sort of a research. I don't know how they did but they come up with the 5 best podcasts all around the world on the GDPR, and Punit's podcast is ranked number 3. I would say it would be number 1 easily, but it doesn't matter. It's just to tell you guys that it's very good. It's excellent. So we would appreciate if you could talk a little bit about your podcast, Punit.
Sure. So, guys, what I want to share about with you is I have a podcast, Fit for Privacy, wherein we invite privacy influencers like Marcio, like Anne Cavacchio, I spoke about, and even others who come in every Thursday and talk about their experiences on privacy, their challenges, and also how to solve those challenges. So if you want to stay up to date, because our business is privacy is a very evolving field and you need to know the latest. So if you want to do that, the name of the podcast is Fit for Privacy. So FIT number 4 privacy. And very soon we are editing that episode with Marcio, and we will have an episode with Marcio, which is a wonderful one because we talk about the privacy in global context, because privacy nowadays is an international concept, and that's where Get Global International is playing a part, and even I'm playing the part in terms of not looking at it as a law siloed perspective, but we both, Marcio and me, look at it as a global perspective. So we talk about that together in that podcast, and take a listen. It's a good one. And as Marcio said, it was ranked number 3 by FeedSpot, and I was happy. So I have, of course, number 1 is always good, but number 3 is even great, and being in the list is even better.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Try to manage how many podcasts on data privacy there are nowadays. So ranked at number 3 is it's an excellent job, and it's really good. Professionals from all around the world, very successful professionals on data privacy. So I definitely recommend you guys to listen to Punit's podcast. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, excellent. So guys, just to let you know, next Monday our data privacy class will be about the Privacy Shield, or at least what was the Privacy Shield, because it seems that it doesn't exist anymore. So we definitely need to understand the impact of the European decision and what the companies need to do in order to solve the problem. As Punit said, Get Global International sees data privacy as something global, because data privacy nowadays is global. That's our slogan. And that's why we usually see data privacy in a more international way of seeing things. And the Privacy Shield is definitely a very important issue to debate. And so I would invite you guys to attend our next class next Monday. And just to let you guys know, I'm sending you the link to our YouTube channel. Today's class is going to be on our YouTube channel. So I also recommend you to sign up and be updated. Okay, Punit, once again, thank you very much for being with us today.
In fact, thank you, Marcio, for having me. It is a pleasure to work with you always, and you guys are doing great stuff in Get Global International, and keep doing that. Keep bringing privacy to people, and this idea of free knowledge, free information is very powerful. So thank you so much for connecting all of us as privacy professionals towards people who need it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. Be safe.
And thanks everyone for joining in. Without you, we can always talk, but with you, it's much more pleasurable.